What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I'm bringing you my locks and traps video for UFC 319 Du Plessis versus Chimaev. So I'm going to rank all these fights from my most confident at the top with the locks, all the way to my least confident at the very bottom with the traps. You guys know the deal, so let's get right into it. First up, we got GM3 versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Now, I have this as a low confidence pick because this could easily go one of two ways. Now, on one hand, Michal Oleksiejczuk, he could come in here and land a starch, clean knockout and put GM3 to sleep. You know, that easily could happen. There's just that chance. There's a small chance. I don't think it's that high, but there's a good chance, or there's a decent chance. If this gets to the ground, GM3 is going to be the much better grappler. If he can find a way to get it there, he can take over. You know, we've seen him weather early storms. We've seen him get his ass kicked early on in fights and still find a way to get a later submission in rounds 2 or 3. So there's always a possibility that if he's able to weather the storm and Michael starts to tire out, fatigue, you know, lose the pop in his hands, he's not going to be as dangerous as the fight goes on. That's where GM3 could take over. Now, do I think this happens? No, but I just think there's such a clear advantage for GM3 on the ground that you can't have this as a super confident pick, because in the one situation, if this gets to the ground, it's not going to look good for Michal Oleksiejczuk. But he has been training at the Fighting Nerds. He did this entire camp at the Fighting Nerds. So it's not like he's going to be training his BJJ to be able to try and grapple with GM3. But he should have the defensive takedown abilities that he's hopefully worked on during this camp just to be able to keep it on the feet by any means possible. It's not that he needs to be able to grapple. It's just he needs to be able to keep it on the feet. And if he does somehow end up on the ground, be defensively sound enough in the grappling to just survive, you know, because there's a chance, you know, maybe GM3 lands a takedown late in the round. It's not like Michael has to try and go for a scramble and flip him around and go for a damn leg lock or something. You know, he just needs to be able to survive and not get tapped. So, you know, I think he should be able to do it. He should be fine. I talked about it more in the full card breakdown. But yeah, you know, I think he has enough skills in the tank, and I think he's been working on it. I think that's the reason why he probably went to the Fighting Nerds for this camp anyway, is to be able to work on those weaknesses in his game, learn from the guy who kicked his ass before. So, you know, I like Michal Oleksiejczuk. I think his career, he's doing the right things. He's trying to improve on the holes in his game. And yeah, I think GM3 doesn't necessarily have the wrestling capabilities offensively to be able to take him down and really dominate him on the ground. I think this would be his fight to throw, honestly. So I like Michael in this fight. You know, Michal Oleksiejczuk should be able to keep it on the feet, and if he does, it should be a clear win. It could be a knockout, or there's a chance it could go to a decision, because, you know, what happens if Michal Oleksiejczuk lands a knockdown? He's probably not going to want to follow GM3 to the ground, you know, unless he might get a standing knockout, or he might be able to maybe go for a ground and pound later on. But I think this could go a little bit longer if he's not going to follow him to the ground, which I could easily see him not wanting to follow. So I like Michal Oleksiejczuk on this one, but just a low confidence pick just because of that. If it gets to the ground, it's probably not going to look great. Next up, we got Cannonier versus Page. Now, I like Michael Page in this one. He should be able to win because he's going to be the longer, more accurate striker, or I guess the range is close, but he's going to be the faster striker. You know, he's going to be a lot quicker on the feet. He's going to be the better all-around striker. You know, Gerald Cannonier, he's, 41 years old now. You know, his speed is not going to be what it was. I have this as a medium confidence pick because Gerald Cannonier really hasn't implemented the grappling much in the past. You know, he's not looking to wrestle. You know, he's looking to stand and trade. He's looking to strike on the feet. In all of his recent fights, you know, he's not going for crazy chain takedown strands. You know what I mean? He's just wanting to stand and strike. And I think that's probably going to be his downfall against Michael Page. I think he's going to be a step ahead of him in every regard. You know, we've seen Cannonier. I don't want to say he has chin problems because he's going against really talented guys who hit hard, but he has been rocked multiple times in recent fights, so his chin is not what it used to be. It is a slight concern for me in this one. Michael Page, it's not like he's going to go in there and brawl. You know, he's a slick striker. He's looking to counter strike. He's looking to land the 1-2s. He's not really trying to go in there and land some 30 punch combination, you know, on something crazy. You know, he's just going to go in and out, outwork you, frustrate you for the whole 3 rounds. But in this fight, I'm a little bit hesitant. I was going to have it higher up in my confidence, but the thing is that Michael Page is a natural welterweight, and he's fighting up at middleweight in this fight. He said before, Michael Page wants to fight at welterweight, but there just weren't fights for him to take. There was no available options that the UFC offered him that really made sense. So he was almost forced to fight up a weight class at middleweight. And I know he's looked decent in middleweight before. Like, he fought Shara. He looked really good in that fight. So I don't want to say decent. He looked really good. but it's just not his natural weight class. So the problem there is that if Jared Cannonier really starts to go for the grappling, and maybe he starts to wrestle, maybe he starts to just work the clinch against the cage. It's not like he has to land a million takedowns. Like, even if he just holds Michael Page against the cage, we've seen Jared Cannonier fight all the way up at like heavyweight. So, he's a big dude and he can really put on the size. So I'm a bit concerned because I don't know if he's just really going to play into Michael Page's game of, let me sit and strike from range for 15 minutes and go in and out. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he's going to play that game. Now, yes, Michael Page, that's kind of what he's had to deal with his entire career. He's had the style. It's been the same. And guys have tried to shut it down and they haven't been able to. So it just goes to show how good Michael Page is as a fighter. But it's just one of those things in the back of my mind. I'm like, Cannonier has fought at higher weight classes. He's a big dude. He knows he's probably going to be behind in the striking. So his best way to win would be to make it close, make it dirty, go into the clinch. And, Michael Page has said he doesn't want to be in this weight class. He wants to drop down. So I have a little bit of hesitancy here. I think the odds are actually decently fair. I still like Michael Page. He should win this fight as long as he's able to keep his game plan going. And as long as Cannonier is not able to, make it really dirty and in the clinch and make it up close. So I still like Michael Page in this one, but medium confidence pick. Now, next up, we got Jessica Andrade versus Loopy Godinez. I got Loopy as a medium confidence pick on this one, just because she has every way to win this fight. The striking is going to be close. Andrade, that's her best way to really make this fight competitive, because she has good power in her hands. She can knock people out. We know that. But the thing is that Loopy just has a wrestling advantage here. She should be able to land the takedowns. She should be able to take this to the ground. If she's able to take it to the ground, she should be able to dominate this fight for as long as she wants. We've seen Andrade, she struggles when she gets to the ground. And when she gets to the ground, she doesn't have a ton of urgency to get back up. She can accept positions on the bottom. We've seen her submitted before. Yeah, Loopy's really not all that dangerous. She's not landing a ton of knockout wins. She's not getting a lot of submissions. In the UFC, I think she has one finish, I think. So it's like she's not really a finisher. But at the same time, it's just Andrade, she doesn't really have the fire to like get back in there and get up. Once she starts to wither and fight, she really starts to go downhill, which is not a good look. And that's kind of has to do with her whole mentality. That's why I really am leaning towards Loopy in this one. Because when when she's looking her best, she can look really good. But it's just in recent years, she just hasn't really been performing to her potential, and mentally it's just hard to tell where she's at. She's been through a divorce and everything, and now she's kind of like fighting for money now, and that's not a good look to have, especially like if your heart's not in it, you're just doing it for the money. She's not going to have that fire, that determination like she did before. I don't know how much she's really bounced back. I haven't really seen anything to indicate that. So the whole mentality side is such a big factor in this, especially I see this fight going long. Both of these girls are decently durable. I know Andrade has been finished before, but a lot of it could be the mental side of things. Like if you're giving up, yeah, you can get finished. So I think Loopy is skilled enough to where she should be able to win this fight. She should, if she sticks to a game plan, she goes for the wrestling, she should be able to win this. Now, the reason why this is a medium confidence pick for me and not a higher confidence is because of her IQ and her decision making. We've seen Loopy Godinez throw fights away in times. We've seen her make stupid decisions. We've seen her really just not make the best decisions mid-fight, and it's cost her before in the past. So it's hard to necessarily have a ton of confidence that Loopy's going to stick to some super high IQ fight game plan, and really stick to what she's good at, go straight to the wrestling. But the reason why I'm picking her with a little bit more confidence is because in her last fight, she did show that. She did stick to a good game plan. She showed that she can kind of bring it all together. Yeah, it's taken her a while to do so, but she showed it in her last fight, so it gives me more confidence in her for this one. And Andrade has kind of been the opposite. She's not been looking great in recent years, and we've already seen the best of her that we're likely going to see. It's not going to get any better. Whereas Loopy, she's only 31. She's going to continue to improve in the next couple years. And I think if she's shown before that she can bring it all together, she should be able to do it in this fight too. So I like her to win. Next up, we got DDP versus Chimaev. Now, as of right now, I'm taking DDP, but I'm very, very low confident in this pick. Now, because I really do think it goes one of two ways. I think if Chimaev's if he's able to really dominate early on in the first round or two, I could see him getting an early submission. I don't see a knockout. It could happen from a ground and pound, but I just think it's either going to be in the first two rounds or likely not at all. I don't see DDP withering later. I feel like if Chimaev's not able to really get that finish early on, I don't see him getting it at all. I think DDP can really start to bounce back if Chimaev starts to tire out. because Chimaev's style, it's so damn intense and aggressive and explosive early on. You just can't keep that pace in longer fights, especially in a 5-rounder. Like we've seen with Chimaev, when he fought Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns, we saw he was able to dominate early on. In the Kamaru Usman fight, he had a 10-8 round in the first round. So it goes to show how much he can impose his will on people a lot early on. But when he starts to slow down, Kamaru Usman was giving him trouble later on. He was really making it even. And that was when Kamaru Usman is a natural welterweight. He stepped up to middleweight on a week's notice for that fight. And he gave Khamzat a rough run for his money. So people think, oh, well, this is going to be some huge difference. Like Khamzat now at 185, he's going to be even more powerful. I don't necessarily think so. We've seen him against Kamaru Usman at this weight class. So it's like, I don't really know what to really put behind that win, because it's like he looked really good in that first round, but he wasn't dangerous enough to be able to finish him, and I don't think he's going to be able to finish DDP right away. There's a chance he could. I could be wrong on this, but I just don't know if he is. I'm not as confident. So many people are super confident. Oh, DDP is going to get finished in the first round. Chimaev's going to sell him just like Rob Whittaker. Whittaker had the whole thing with his jaw. That was an ongoing injury. That was a different situation. Yeah, he's gone in and dominated guys before, but we've seen where Khamzat has looked human before. He's looked human against Gilbert Burns. He looks human against Kamaru Usman, and that was up a weight class outside of Kamaru's natural range. And now he's fighting the champion. He's not been submitted in, 10 plus years, not at the UFC level ever. So I think people are really underestimating DDP. And I think if this goes to a decision, I'd say this could easily be a coin toss. I could see Chimaev winning the first round decisively, and then maybe he takes off the second round, DDP outstrikes him, and then the third close, maybe Khamzat has a little bit more in the tank, he starts to take over with the wrestling, he wrestles a little bit, third round he takes it, same thing, he backs off again, the fourth round, now it's 2-2 going into the fifth. I could see it going like a Whittaker versus RDR type of thing, where they both have their own big moments throughout the fight, and at the end you're looking at a 2-2 going into the fifth round, like, what the hell is going to happen here on the scorecards? So it's really hard to say, I'm still picking DDP, but not confident, because I think this can go any which way. There's a lot of possibilities here, but I do feel like it goes a little later. I don't think there's a first round finish. I don't see that happening. I don't know. I just personally don't see that, but anyway, we'll go with DDP for the pick for now, but I'm going to wait and see with the weigh-ins and everything. My opinion might end up changing a little bit. Next up, we got Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Now, I'm taking Carlos Prates, but I'm not as confident as other people are. Geoff Neal, he's definitely slept on. His striking is really good. If you look at their stats, it's very comparable. It's just the thing that's leaning me towards Carlos Prates is there's a bunch of little things that are edging me towards Carlos Prates and picking him. Because if you look at Carlos Prates, we watched that fight with Ian Gary. Yeah, he was getting outstruck, and he lost the majority of the fight. But it just felt like he was being hesitant. He was worried about the 5 rounds with the cardio. He didn't want to wear himself out. You could kind of tell that it just didn't seem like he was really living up to his full self and his full potential in that fight. We saw at the very end, he almost finished Ian Gary, and he was dangerous when he really started to get on it. And I think that's more of a decision-making, gas tank conservation type of issue as opposed to a raw skill thing. I think if it was a 3-rounder and he went and kept that pace like he did in the 5th round, he could definitely beat Ian Gary. We saw Geoff Neal, he had a really good fight against Ian Gary too, 3-rounder. So it's a little bit harder to compare those. And it's like, but if you look at Geoff Neal's record, he's gone against really good guys. Like he beat Bilal Muhammad. Like he's fought the who's who of the division. Yeah, he's lost some, he's won some. His record doesn't look as good as it really is on paper. 8-4 in the UFC, I think. But it's like, it doesn't look great from afar, but you look at the guys he's fought. But he has lost to guys that are better strikers than him. Like, he lost to, who was it? Wonder Boy. I'm trying to think. He won a split decision against Ponzinibbio. It's older Ponzinibbio, too. I'm like, Prates would have beaten him. And he lost to Neal Magny, too. That was the other one. So it's like, the lengthier strikers have given Geoff Neal problems in the past that I think Carlos Prates would beat all of those guys. Maybe not Bilal. That would be interesting. But I think Carlos Prates could definitely beat Ponzi. I think he could definitely beat... he did beat... what's his name? I'm blanking. Neal Magny. He beat him. So I'm like, if you look at the last wins, it's hard to do MMA math. Obviously, I don't want to base a decision off of that. But if you look at the guys Geoff Neal's face, it's like, yeah, the competition's high. He struggled with the lengthier strikers. Carlos Prates, he's not the best striker on earth. You know what I mean? He's definitely struggled at times. And, you know, his career has not looked great earlier on. He's really started to come together as a more well-rounded MMA fighter as he's gone to the Fighting Nerds. You know, they've all built up together. Since his run in the UFC, he's looked a lot better than earlier on in his career. But I just think everything in terms of the direction is going towards Prates. You know, he's younger. He's 31, reaching his physical prime. Geoff Neal is about to turn 35 years old. He's not really having any hopes for the belt at this point, so it's hard to tell where his aspirations are. And sure, I'm not sure that that Prates ever really touches the belt. But at the same time, I think he has those aspirations right now in his career. He's really thriving. He's surging. And I like seeing him come off of a loss. You know, I was watching recent interviews of him where he's really started to kind of mature a little bit in how he talks, and he's like, yeah, you know, I wasn't listening to my coaches as well as I could have been, you know, I was worried about getting the KO, and he's talking about this fight, he's like, look, I just want to get the win, I'm not worried about chasing some knockout, which is something I really like to see. And then on the Geoff Neal side, he's saying, I'm preparing to just stand and bang, I'm ready for a war, I don't think it's going to go out in the first round. That doesn't give me confidence that he's going to stick to a good game plan. So, for everything I've said, I talked about it more in the full card breakdown too, if you go check out my last video. I like Carlos Prates in this. I'm not as super confident as other people are, but I think he does enough to get the job done. But Geoff Neal's a crafty vet. Anything could happen. So that's why I have it as a medium confidence pick. Next up, we got Chase Hooper versus Hernandez. Now, I like Chase Hooper in this one. It's just without Hernandez, it's just we haven't been able to really see him live up to his full potential. You know what I mean? Like, he's looked decent at times from here and there, but there's no real skill set that he has that's going to make him a real threat to Chase Hooper in this. Chase Hooper has continued to look better and better and better with every single fight that he's been in. You know, ever since that Steve Garcia loss, yeah, that was a bit of a setback for him. Didn't look great, but the run that Steve Garcia is on is one of the longest spans of knockout runs in featherweight history. Absolutely insane, and especially with Chase Hooper moving up a weight class too, it's where he really should be. He's really filling into his body, and in terms of the grappling, he's going to be way better than Hernandez. Hooper is going to be the much better grappler. And the striking, if you look at their stats, they're actually relatively comparable. There's no real lean for Hernandez in this one. I think the striking is going to look better and better from Chase Hooper the more we see him fight too, because he went into the UFC as a grappling dominant dude. That was his bread and butter, and it still is, but he really didn't have the striking to match his level of grappling. And we've seen in recent fights, he started to get better and better and better with the striking. So I think at this point in his MMA career, especially in the UFC, I don't see Hernandez being that big of a problem. You know, he's not really a super huge power puncher. He doesn't really have a ton of threat on the feet. I don't think he's going to have enough to pop Chase and get him out of there. So I'm like, I just don't see a world where Hernandez beats Hooper. You know, I don't think it's a lock, you know, because I mean, Chase Hooper has been cracked before. You know, he's been cracked. We've seen that before. And we know his striking is definitely his weakest point compared to anything else. So there's a chance he could get outstruck. You know, I'm not saying that's impossible, but he's definitely not like a finish or bust. I think if he stays on the feet, he can beat Hernandez. If Hooper takes it to the ground, he can beat him there too. I think he could win anywhere this fight goes, and I don't think Hernandez is dangerous enough to pose a real threat to where I'm worried about it. So for that reason, I'm taking Hooper. I really like him in this spot, and I think he's a really good prospect too. You know, to see him do this well, we just see him to look better and better as time progresses. With Hernandez, he looked good early on in his career. He had some hype, but then it's just been ups and downs. He really hasn't proven anything good. Went to a split decision against Austin Hubbard. I'm like, that's not a good look. It's just like he hasn't really shown to improve all that much to give me any real confidence that he can make this fight super competitive. I have this as a high confidence pick though, not a lock, just because Hernandez is a big ass dude. He's very big, very strong, physically imposing. Chase Hooper is growing into his body as he becomes an adult man. You know, we saw him enter the UFC looking like a little kid, and now he's starting to really fill out. So, you know, he's going against a grown ass man who's really large and big and strong. So I don't want to say concerned, but, you know, there is the threat of, you know, maybe Hernandez is getting outstruck on the feet, and he just takes it into the clinch. You know, he's like, oh, I got to clinch, and Mario Bautista's his way to winning a round or two. You know, that is a genuine concern. You know, I get why people might say that. I just don't think it's going to be enough to win it on the scorecards. I think Chase Hooper can likely win this fight wherever it goes. I like Chase Hooper a lot this week. I'm confident in him to win. So, yeah, that does it for this one. We get it. There we go. Oh, yeah. Next up, we got Idiris versus Morales. Now, these are two guys. I put this as a low confidence pick. I wasn't able to really do a whole lot of tape study on either of these guys. With Idiris, you know, he's a Kazakhstani undefeated grappler, or striker, I mean, who's pretty well rounded. He can take the fight wherever he wants to. And then you have Morales, who wants to keep it more in the grappling. You know, he's looking to wrestle a little bit more. Like I said, I didn't really do a whole lot of tape study on these guys. I just kind of watched a couple the recent fights, looked up a couple highlights. Nothing really stood out to me. You know, if I had to do a pick, I would do Idiris. I don't even know if I spelled that one right, honestly. I think it was Idiris. But yeah, I had to put it on here. I wanted to put it on here just to include it. If I had to put a lean for this, but low confidence is because I haven't really had the time to really deep dive into these guys. But you know, I'll pick with the undefeated Kazakhstani dude. You know what I mean? The little, like, you got to go with that dude. I don't know. But not a lot of confidence on this one because, like I said, not a lot of time behind it. But just a little short breakdown for this one. But anyway, next up, we got Edson Barboza versus Drakkar Klose. Now, I am going with Edson Barboza. I almost had this as a trap, but to put some respect on Edson Barboza's name, put him as a low confidence pick. I know I'm a little going over here a little bit, but you can see him. Low confidence pick. These guys are old. They're chinny. They've been through wars. They've been through battles. I just think Edson Barboza is more of a dog. You know what I mean? I think he can land one nice little kick, get Drakkar out of there. Now, he's getting older, so he's not going to be landing some crazy spinning kicks like he used to. You know, I don't think it's going to be there, but all it takes is one. I think all it takes is one from either of these guys, and I just give the slight lean to Edson Barboza to have that more powerful strike from distance. You know, I could see him landing that kill shot more often than I could see Drakkar doing it. Realistically, though, both of these guys are older and compromised. I could see this being a rather boring fight, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys both just kind of almost look like they're sparring out there. Because, I mean, who wants to be damn near 40 and get knocked out cold? Not a good look. I just think at least Edson has more heart. You know, I think if either of these guys, it's a matter of heart and who wants it more. I feel like Edson Barboza wants it more. Drakkar, he's even said, he's like, oh, I don't want to fight anyone tough. Just give me the nobodies. That's soft. You know, I mean, Edson Barboza, he's a beast. He's gone against high-level dudes. I mean, look at the list of guys he's fought. It's absolutely insane. He's fought the who's for the last 10 years. So, I like Edson Barboza. Maybe a tad bit biased because I know they're both, anything can happen. The durability is a concern, but give me Edson Barboza. Low confidence pick, though. Next up, another high confidence pick. We got Susurkaev versus Nolan. Now, Susurkaev, if you look at my Dana White Contender Series breakdown video on him, I watched this dude's tape for the Dana White Contender Series. There's certain dudes, I looked at him and I was like, damn, this dude looks good. He can fight in the UFC right now. I think if they just spawned him in, I literally said that in that video. I said, if they just took him, they could put him in the UFC right now. I think he could beat some lower level guys just straight off the couch. He could just walk right into the UFC and start getting some wins in. And I think this is exactly it. I looked through the Nolan dude. I looked through some of his recent tape. It's just nothing impressive. Like, yeah, if you look at his recent wins, it's a couple knockout wins in a row. But it's just like none of them were really, I don't know. His skills just didn't seem like anything crazy to me. I forget. I watched his, it was his third most recent fight. I forget the guy's name he fought, but he fought this dude and like he was getting clipped the entire time and he's like super hesitant and he gets this like, he knocked the dude out, but it was like, it almost seemed staged. It almost seemed like something out of a movie because it was just like the dude got hit and it was like delayed. He started moving and then he fell over. It was kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but it's just, I don't know. You look at the knockouts and it's like, they're maybe not as good as you think they are. Especially against regional scene dudes. This fight just feels like a setup for Susurkaev. The UFC wants to see him do well. The fact that Dana White basically said, yeah, you're the future, you know, you got huge potential. And he basically did them the favor of, he's like, yeah, I'll fight as soon as I can, you know, whenever you want me to, I could fight whenever. And he's like, Dano's like, yo, maybe you could fight here soon, like for this card. And then he just puts him right in. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but I'm not saying anything's like rigged or anything or something stupid like that. But I'm saying, I think the UFC likes this guy. I think they like this kid. There's a lot of future for him. There's a lot of potential. He obviously has the skills. He's good on the feet with the striking. He has takedown defense. Has been tested multiple times. In his fight on the Contender Series a couple days ago, he blocked or prevented 5 takedowns in a matter of like 3 minutes. The other dude, the Taha dude, he landed 0 for 5 takedowns in only like 3 minutes of the fight. So, you know, and it's not even just that. I saw it on his other fights too, where sometimes he would land a kick, it would get caught, but he was able to balance really well on one leg, be able to withstand the takedown and keep it on the feet. The dude's talented. I like him a lot. High confidence pick. You know, he should go through Nolan. I just don't think Nolan's anything special. I feel like they're just giving him someone short notice that he can beat. And this seems like a perfect alley-oop layup for him. Odds are absolutely chalked. Minus 800 is kind of crazy, but at the same time, I get it. I really think Susurkaev can do well in the UFC. Whereas Nolan, this feels like it feels like this fight was made for Susurkaev. They're just bringing him up, and he's just a pawn in this game for Susurkaev. That's just clear as day how it seems from the outside. So I like Susurkaev in this spot a lot. You know, the little thing that keeps me off of putting this even more confident, maybe even a lock, is one, I mean, obviously he's not as experienced in the UFC. It's hard to have that much confidence in him. But at the same time, he is having to cut weight twice now. So he cut for Tuesday, Dana White Contender Series. Yeah, he didn't take any damage, but still having to cut weight, and now he's cutting weight again for Saturday. It is a bit of a concern, and he was showing up on short notice for that fight too. He only had a couple days notice for that fight on the Dana White Contender Series, so he hasn't had a full camp to do any of this. So it is a slight concern. I mean, Nolan, they're calling him up short notice too, so it's like even on both ends. But just the double weight cut back to back is a concern that you should be aware of. Anyway, I'm still highly confident in him. He should be able to get it done because he was just able to prove that he can do a short notice weight cut. Short notice, he can step up, still kick some ass. So I like Susurkaev in this one. Next up, we got Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. I like Kai Asakura in this one, and I get why people are on both ends of the spectrum. You know, on one hand, you have Tim Elliott, who is a dog. He's been battle tested. He's been proven. And we know he will win by any means. He will cheat if he needs to win. You know, he will outdog anyone who doesn't have that heart in them. And he has good grappling. You know, that he can win fights through the grappling if he's getting worked on the feet. Kai should be the better striker. He should be the faster striker. He should be more powerful on the feet. He should have the clear advantage there. It really all comes down to whether Tim Elliott has the ability to grapple and take it to the ground or not. That's all this fight comes down to. I think this line is a little bit wide because we've seen Asakura struggle. You know, his one fight in the UFC, obviously it was against Pantoja, but he still struggled. You know, he did have his own moments. He had good moments. He landed some flush shots that would have knocked other guys completely out. But we haven't seen him really shine in the UFC yet. So I get why people are putting it even higher confidence. But personally, I got to put it medium in there just because we haven't seen Asakura shine in the UFC yet, where Tim Elliott is beating good guys. Yeah, maybe through some little bit of not legal methods, you know, like his Ulanbekov fight. But he's still been able to prove he's a dog. It's just the fact that he's a 38, almost 39-year-old flyweight. Man, it's hard to have a lot of confidence in that too. It's like if you look at my full card breakdown video I dropped either yesterday, a couple days ago. I talk about Tim Elliott and all of his injuries that he's had throughout the years that he's had to cancel fights for with his knees. So go check that out if you haven't already. But Tim Elliott is ridden with injuries, and I go more in detail on that video. But the injuries are really kind of worrying me for the Elliott side and totally keeping me off of it because he has to grapple. You know, the way for him to win this fight is to wrestle, really make it dirty, make it up close and personal. And we know he's had injuries, especially with his knee. So and that's one of the, I mean, you have bad knees as a wrestler, not a good look. So I think that's going to really hinder his ability to perform against Asakura, especially the older he gets. It's not going to get any better. So I do like Asakura. I think this is a good shining spot for him to really kind of bounce back from that Pantoja fight, get a good win. Could be a knockout. You know, we haven't seen Tim Elliott knocked out in a minute, but I could see a knockout happening. I could see a decision either way. I think Kai Asakura hopefully trained, you know, enough with the takedown defense and his grappling defense from that last fight against Pantoja, and hopefully now he looks a little bit better if it does get to the ground, but I think he should be able to keep it on the feet. I think he should be able to win this fight. Next up, we got Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. Now, I like Lerone Murphy to win this spot. I'm hesitant about this one, though. It just seems almost like there's a narrative agenda being pushed with Aaron Pico that's so odd and weird. And then on the other end, you have like the entire MMA, UFC community all going for Lerone Murphy. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like, it's throwing me off. You know, I almost put this as a trap. I was so damn close to putting this as a trap with the Edson Barboza fight. This one's the same way, just because everyone, like all the bets, the bettings, whatever sports books, they're all going for Pico. They have him as a favorite, and then all the public though is all going to Lerone Murphy. But the line's not even really changing; it's hardly moving at all. So it's suspect. You know, they're throwing Pico right into this right away. They want him to do well. Yes, Pico's looked good in the past. We know he has the wrestling accolades that he's had in the past. He's a good wrestler. That's the thing, though. The thing with Aaron Pico, and I'll talk about this more in my full card breakdown, my last video, so check that out. But Pico, at this point, he already has the money. You know, he's not really fighting to get his family out of the trenches. You know what I mean? Like, he's already doing very well off. And I don't know what exactly his motivations are. I know he's going to the UFC because he just wants to fight. He said that before. So I know, like, his heart's in it. But it's just like, I don't know exactly where his head's at. With Lerone Murphy, you know, he's undefeated. He's looked good. Yeah, he's not the most entertaining fighter, but he's been established too. You know, he's fought the good competition. We've seen Pico. Yeah, he has some good wins recently, but if you look at the records, like I talked about it more in my other video too, the level of competition, if you really look at it, it's not even close to being comparable. The thing with Pico, I know I talked about this in my other video too, so make sure y'all check that out if you haven't, but Pico has had some injuries in the past too that have affected him. He's had fights that have been messed up where he's had shoulder come out. So it's like there are some red flags for Aaron Pico. Whereas Lerone Murphy, there's not really any red flags with him. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen him tested. Yeah, he's been clipped before against guys who can throw some bombs. Like Dan Ige was hitting on him. But he's able to recover. You know, he has really good ability to recover. He's not been knocked out, obviously, undefeated. So we know that he can really withstand a heavy punch. So people who are just saying, oh, well, Aaron Pico is just gonna knock his head off clean away. I mean, the dude fought Josh Emmett and Dan Ige, beat them both. So it's like, he's fought dudes who can rock people before, and he's beat them. So I'm not... And we've seen, like, especially like guys like Josh Emmett, he took Michal into the damn shadow realm, to the nether portal. So I mean, it's not like we've seen Aaron Pico do the same thing to guys as a Bryce Mitchell caliber, who we just seen has been doing better and better in his recent fights. So I don't know. This fight has me very suspicious. I'm just like trying to avoid this one altogether, you know, because it's like the Lerone Murphy, the money line for him is almost like too enticing to not get a nibble on it. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, man. When the whole public has a public dog like this, where everyone's on it, it just rubs me the wrong way, has me a little tweaked out. But yeah, you got to pick Lerone Murphy. You know, anyone picking Aaron Pico, you're just picking him what? Because he trained with Khamzat? Because he has great wrestling accolades? It's like at this point in his career, man, he doesn't need the win to feed his family. You know, it's not like, I need to wrestle. You know, like, he's just like, I'm going to win by any means. I don't care about the fans. I don't care about anything. I'm just going to go in there and get a win by any means possible. Like the dudes on the damn Dana White Contender Series, this last one this week. That's how they were fighting. You know, they were like not taking any chances. They were just doing whatever it took to win, no matter how boring. I don't see Aaron Pico doing that. I see Aaron Pico putting on a show. If Aaron Pico knocks out Lerone Murphy cold, then you know what? I'll be wrong. Like, I'd be glad to be wrong there. But I just don't think he's going to do some Marab-style game plan. I just don't think that'll be the case in this. It could, because he has those skills. Personally, I just don't think so. But anyway, for this one, we'll do Lerone Murphy as the pick. Definitely not pick flipping on this one. But yeah, medium confidence pick. Because we just haven't seen, you know, Pico has a lot of hype. Maybe he could get the upset. I just don't see it. Next up, we got Bryan Battle versus Nursultan Ruziboyev. I have this as a medium confidence pick. Usually when I'm picking dogs, I don't have them this confident. But, you know, I like Nursultan Ruziboyev to win this. Purely because Bryan Battle, his last fight, you look at that against Randy Brown. He showed up 5 pounds overweight. He was getting rocked. He had to basically Mario Bautista hug his way to a decision win there. which I don't even think he deserved. I think he lost that fight. And if you take into the fact that he was 5 pounds overweight, in the grand scheme of things, that should have cost him the fight. Like, if it was that close and one dude showed up 5 over, you deserve to lose the fight for that. Especially, it's not like it was a back and forth striking. He had to literally hug and control his way to a win against the cage. So, bunch of BS. And I think now he's moving up the weight class and he's fighting Nursultan Ruziboyev, who's a big dude who can wrestle, who can hang anywhere this fight goes, has the cardio to last. He's not chinny. Bryan Battle's not going to knock him out. He's not going to submit him, I don't think either. I mean, Nursultan Ruziboyev hasn't been submitted in years. If I think he was submitted maybe one time in his entire record. I'd have to double check that, but the dude is durable. You know, he's looked damn good in the UFC. And the one loss that Ruziboyev had was when he had to cut down to welterweight, division down, to fight Joaquin Buckley, who's a damn good contender. So I don't know why Bryan Battle is a favorite here. You know, it's like really nothing has shown me anything to give me confidence in having Bryan Battle as a minus 200 something, somewhere around there. Absolutely insane. I'm picking Ruziboyev. I feel like a lot of people underestimate him. You know, people say, oh, he's not good, he's not skilled. He's just not super active on the feet. He's more of a counter striker. So he's going to wait. You know, he's not going to just barrage in there. He's looking to wait until you strike, then he hits you back. I just don't think Bryan Battle's cardio is all that great. And I don't think his striking's all that great either. I don't think he's going to outstrike Ruziboyev. And I don't think he's going to... In Bryan Battle, his best strength is definitely his grappling. And I just don't think he's going to have that advantage having to fight up a weight class before, like up at 185. You know, that's going to be a whole different ball game than when you're at 170 with 5 pounds on Randy Brown and you're hugging him. That's a hell of a lot different than fighting 185 against Nursultan Ruziboyev. You know, like Nursultan, he can hang with the wrestling and the grappling. He can hold his own there. And I don't see him getting submitted either. You know, he was in some rocky spots in his last fight where he was in a couple of tricky submissions, got out of those. So I don't see Bryan Battle submitting him either. And that was just because he got rocked from a headbutt too. It was like a nasty clash of heads that the ref didn't see. I talked about that in my recap video too. But that was the reason why he got a little bit wobbled there. And it's like, yeah, he got rocked by Joaquin Buckley at 170 when he had to make a big weight cut. So I'm like, people are underestimating Ruziboyev in this one. I like him to win straight up. And I'm decently confident. I think he has enough to get this job done this week. So picking Nursultan Ruziboyev for this one. Finally, we got Krini Silva versus Downey Barboza. I have this as a trap. Now, it's not a trap in the sense of we know a lot about both of these girls. You know, like we know how they fight, what they're good at. I just have this as a trap. I had to put this as a trap because I think a lot of people are underestimating Downey Barboza this week. A lot of people are underestimating. I would have put this normally probably as a low confidence pick somewhere in the pack. Probably right around like, this is almost like, it's not similar to GM35, but I'd put it around there just because I think people are severely underestimating Downey Barboza's abilities. You know, I think she is very well-rounded. It's the short notice thing. It's holding me back just a little bit. But considering Krini Silva is a -2 something favorite is absolutely insane. Because if you look at these girls' recent fights, now, when she was not able to beat and take down Viviana Rojo in her last fight, she had problems. She ended up losing that fight. And I went back and I looked and I was like, all right, you know, like she lost this fight. And you look, Krini Silva was a -350 favorite in that fight against Viviana Rojo. A -350 favorite, and she completely sold. Because when she couldn't get the takedowns going, she was basically a bust. She wasn't able to hang, and it was rough. So for her to, and the thing about that fight too, I almost forgot, is when she sold as a -350 to Viviana Rojo, who's 38 years old, who now just got released from the UFC from they don't want her anymore, you know, after her Tracy Cortez loss. So I'm like, and we saw her get dominated by Tracy Cortez in the grappling. So I'm like, that doesn't give me a ton of confidence. You know, obviously she's not hanging there. So I don't know. I think this is a trap. I think Downey Barboza, if this gets in the clinch, I don't think Krini Silva is going to be able to land takedowns like that. Because we know Downey Barboza has a black belt in judo. You know, the clinch, the trips, all that, that's her bread and butter. I don't think Krini Silva is going to be able to necessarily get her down from there. We've seen Downey Barboza struggle against really high-level wrestlers like Miranda Maverick, but that's totally different than Krini Silva. Queenie Silva is not the same wrestler as a Miranda Maverick. It's completely different, and that's the thing too. Deonna Barboza took that fight on short notice against Miranda Maverick. So yeah, she lost, but that's like, it was a short notice, and she's going against a really high-level wrestler. I'm not super surprised at that outcome, but I don't think you can just assume, oh, she got taken down by Miranda Maverick, Queenie Silva's going to do the same thing. I don't think so at all. I don't think that's how that goes down. I am a bit worried just about the short notice step up for her. So I get why people are leaning Queenie Silva for that, but it's definitely not enough for me. I think Deonna Barboza has really improved her striking in recent years. She has looked better and better and better. And I think with Queenie Silva, yeah, she's had a good record in the UFC so far, but it's really been if she can't get a submission, we don't really know how these fights are going. She's getting round one submissions. Yeah, she's subbing lower level girls, but it's like if she goes to a decision, like we saw against Viviane, she's not able to finish her or take her down, she loses. She's getting outstruck. I think Deonna Barboza outstrikes Queenie Silva. I think she can win on the feet. We've seen Deonna go against a higher level striker before, like Ernesto Kirikade, and she was able to hang. I know a lot of people said she lost that fight, but she was very competitive in that fight, even if you think she lost it. And I think she's probably a better striker than Queenie Silva. So I'm picking Deonna Barboza this week. I think the reason I have this as a trap too is like a lot of people see like, oh, it's like a -2 something. Everyone's picking Queenie Silva this week. Like I looked at on Tapology, I think it was like 90-something% of people are picking Queenie Silva. And I get why people are, but at the same time, people see that and they're like, oh, I'm just going to throw her in a million parlays. I would be very hesitant. I would not do that. I would definitely not do that at all. I like the over on this fight, because these girls are probably going longer. They're both very durable. I don't think Queenie Silva is going to have anything to submit Deonna Barboza. I don't see that happening. Even if Deonna Barboza were to lose this fight, I assume it's very likely to be by a decision. So I don't know. I would completely avoid this one. I think this is a trap. It's the damn short notice. That's the only thing that's like, okay, I get why some people might pick Silva because of that, but I just think Deonna Barboza is actually the more talented fighter, who's more well-rounded, has more ways to win this fight, whereas I think with Queenie, unless she's able to take it to the ground, if she can't take it to the ground and really implement her will in the grappling on the ground, I don't think she's going to have success in this fight. So that's why I have it as a trap. I just don't think people are really seeing that. They're seeing her recent submission wins, and they're thinking, oh, she's going to have her way. This other girl's coming up on short notice. She's just going to sub her easily. Be careful, man. She couldn't do it against a 38-year-old who just got cut. And she lost a decision from striking. So I'd be very, very careful. That's why I have this as a trap. But anyway, guys, that does it for this one. Oh, did I keep them all? Oh, there we go. All right, guys. That does it for this week's Locks and Traps video for UFC 319. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys found some value. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about if you agree with some of these or disagree. Let me know your most confident picks. Let me know which ones you guys think are traps this week. And I know, too, I didn't have a lock. I just don't think there are any locks this week. I really just don't think any fights are like, yeah, that's a lock. I don't know. They're not sticking out to me. But so yeah, no lock this week, but like the trap, like we talked about. But anyway, thank you guys once again for watching. Thank you guys so much for all the love and recent support on the videos. It means a ton to me. And make sure, yeah, if you guys haven't watched my full card breakdown, I got the best stats on there. I got the best stats in the scene on there. So we break down everything in that. It's a bit longer, but we really get in depth on the reasoning behind every single fight. It's probably something you haven't seen on other channels in there, so make sure to check that out in case you haven't. But yeah, I got my weigh-in recap video coming tomorrow. We got a betting breakdown video coming soon. And yeah, so I'll have these videos out soon, so make sure to like, subscribe, stay tuned for those videos. And until I see you guys, thank you all so much for all the love and support. Once again, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA. And until I see y'all in the next one, peace.